Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's really nice to see faces. We've got some familiar faces and some that are a little less familiar on here. So we're all glad that you're here with us. I know that we're all really used to Zooming, but I do have a few housekeeping and ground rules that I want to share. If it's possible, keep your camera on. That really helps me while I'm presenting to see your faces and know if you're totally zoned out and I need to change my focus at all. Yeah, Ted giving me a little smile. That's really helpful. If you can't get your camera on, if you're driving, if you're, got other people in your office, that's fine too. But the more faces I can see, the better off I'll feel. And so if you can do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. Additionally, we welcome your questions at any time, but if possible, keep yourself muted if you're not talking, and that will just help with overall feedback and noise for other people who are listening. And then watch the chat box. We'll be sharing some important links and notes in that area as we go today. So let's get started. Before we get too far in, I'm going to turn things over to our president, Kelly Strock, and she's going to give a few opening remarks and then flip it back to me for the next steps.
Thanks, Callie. It's good to be here. Welcome, everyone. I'm Kelly Strock, and I'm excited to participate with you in today's session and share with you more about the Community Foundation, how endowments work, and how a designated fund is one way that you can partner with us and that we partner with nonprofit organizations. So we're looking forward to your engagement with us today, and I'll turn it back to Callie for the rest of the agenda.
Okay, so today we're going to kick off with an introductory activity. We're going to put you in breakout rooms so you can all get to know each other a little better and get to know some of us a little bit better. And then we'll dive right into the presentation, which will consist of what is a community foundation and how do we work? Share a little history and some other details in that story. And Ronnie can probably add a little bit to that history for us, not to put her on the spot, but she's here, so that's good. And then I'll talk a little bit more about what the term endowment means, how it works, and why your organization might consider establishing one. And then finally, I'll talk about what it takes to start and grow an endowment fund at the Community Foundation and share a little bit about a special opportunity for organizations out there that may not yet benefit from an endowment fund. Throughout the day, we've got a few activities planned that hopefully will make this Zoom presentation a little bit more entertaining, a little bit more fun, and we'll get started. I'm going to kick things off with a quick video. Just for some background, across Indiana, we're fortunate to have a strong network of community foundations. And so while each of us are unique organizations serving our own unique counties, we're able to share resources, tools, tips, and ideas. And so this short video, and for those of you who can't see and are just listening, you'll be able to hear what they say as well. But this video was put together by our peers in Jefferson County. So I'm going to stop at about a minute and a half in because it does then reference Jefferson County, but the content is really good and relates to what we do here.
Gates, Carnegie, Rockefeller. Gates, Carnegie, Rockefeller. I'm not. Generous, caring, rich in spirit, I am. You don't have to be a person of great wealth to make an impact. When caring individuals give through a flexible, creative, capable organization known as a community foundation, our philanthropic potential is unlimited. As your local community foundation, we provide you the opportunity to permanently support the causes you care about, both near and far. We do this by protecting and administering permanent funds through thoughtful grant making to improve the quality of life in the community we serve.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to stop it there, but I guess it's stopping there today. It moved on me. We'll share out the link too, and I've got a couple other videos. But basically, community foundations are here to serve our communities through grant making and a lot of other ways. And then before we get too far into the weeds, I'd just like to introduce our current staff. We do have a couple people on the call with us. And we've had some changes in the last year. So if you haven't engaged with us recently, I just want to make sure you see people's faces and know who we are. You've already heard from our president, Kelly Strock. She's the first photo on the slide. Marcy Minton is next in the lineup on the slide, and she is our senior program officer. Carly Acre-King is our program officer. She's also on the call, and she is running tech behind the scenes. So hopefully things are working out well. And if not, she can answer your chat questions a little better than I can while I'm trying to present. Carly manages our designated grant making, which includes designated funds like those we'll talk a lot about during this presentation, as well as land conservation fund grants, town endowment grants, Robert P. Bell education grants, and scholarships. Next on the photo is me. I'm the community engagement officer, and I'm the storyteller for the foundation and manage our communications, as well as work closely with donor advisors and other donors as they see the impact of their giving. Following me on the slide is Amy Tuttle, our communications administrator. Amy manages incoming donations for the foundation, ensuring that donors are appropriately thanked. That thank yous are a really important piece of the puzzle at the community foundation. And she's also almost always the voice on the end of the phone when you call our office. So if you give us a call, she's probably going to answer and help get you to the right person. Joanna Darda is also on the call today, and she's next in line of the pictures. She is the foundation's administrative assistant, and she acts as our office manager and provides support to the program officers and finance officer. And last on the list, but obviously not least, is Trina Bowling. She's the foundation's first full-time staff finance officer. So she's tasked with ensuring that each fund is managed appropriately and that fund details are available when you need them. So that's our full staff. We do also have a couple of interns this summer. Bridget Junker is on the call today, and she is a public relations major, and she is helping with some of the storytelling for the foundation. And Megan McCarter is also an intern this summer. She is not on the call today. She works on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and she is a political science and philosophy major. And while her picture's not on the slide, they are both really valuable and important to our team in helping us move things forward this summer. The Foundation of Muncie and Delaware County serves Muncie and Delaware County, Indiana, and we support grant making in 5 broad areas. We always say that we're broad on purpose, and those areas are arts and culture, community betterment, economic development, education, and human services. So since 1985, when the foundation began, we've worked with individual donors as well as other funders and agencies to solicit donations and raise funds. That has created our endowment, and we are built on a forever model. So where most of the gifts that we receive are invested, and a portion of that investment is spent each year. So that means that the Community Foundation should be around for many, many, many years, and it will continue to grow and be able to make grants to nonprofits and address community needs forever. And here's a little history lesson. Oh, it looks like my really cool animation may not work here. Isn't that the fun of Power? Oh, here it goes. Yay. Okay, well, the concept of charitable endowments, often referred to as trusts, date back to the early 1700s. The first community foundation is considered to be the Cleveland Foundation in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was established in 1914. The model gained some popularity with about 20 community foundations popping up across the United States over the next 5 years, so taking up to about 1920. By 1980, so in the course of another 60 years, around 225 community foundations existed in cities across America with combined assets totaling $1.4 billion. It was around that time that Ed Ball, who was a Ball brother, was introduced to the concept of community foundations. And at the time, the Ball Brothers Foundation was the key philanthropic supporter of the Muncie community. The story that I've always been told was that Ed felt that it was unfair to the community that one family have so much control over which community needs took priority. And he felt that a community foundation was needed to support the community more broadly. So Ed met with a group of community leaders and business leaders to pitch this idea. And he offered a $1 million in matching money to establish a community foundation. Led by David Sursa, who served as the foundation's founding president. A group of community leaders formed the Community Foundation of Muncie and Delaware County in 1985. The initial board raised the $1 million in matching money in just a few months, and then went back to Ed Ball and said, would you consider matching another $1 million? And so within a few years, the foundation had assets in excess of $4 million. So they'd received those two matches and raised that money. Since then, so over the next 36 years, the foundation has grown to an asset base of more than 75 million. That was a new high water mark for us this year. And that's come from individual donors, support from private foundations, and prudent investing over time. So a lot of growth and a lot of good in the community. So to dive into what that all means, I think the word endowment is really important, and defining that's really important. And most simply put, an endowment is a donation of money or property to a nonprofit organization which uses the resulting investment income for a specific purpose. Most endowments are designed to keep the principal amount intact while using the investment income for charitable efforts. As I've mentioned, at the Community Foundation, most of our funds are endowed. When gifts are made to a foundation, they are invested, and a percentage of the earnings are spent each year to ensure a pool of assets that will continue to make grants to the community year over year. And I have another video, which I'm going to try my best not to cut off early this time. This one is from the Shiawassee Community Foundation, which is in Oswego, Michigan. And so again, they'll probably mention that a little bit in the video, but the content makes sense for all community foundations.
Here at the Shiawassee Community Foundation, we talk a lot about endowment funds. But what is an endowment? Picture an apple tree. It has a nice thick trunk and plenty of branches spreading into a canopy above. Now imagine our tree grows a whole bunch of apples on it. Every spring, when the tree is full of delicious red apples, we go out and collect them by the armful. But we leave the tree trunk and branches alone. That way, the tree will keep making more apples for us every year. The trunk and branches of our tree are like an endowed fund, and the apples are the interest, or money that the bank pays us every year for keeping our money with them. Every year, we get some more interest to collect and spend however we like. But we leave the original chunk of money alone, so it will continue earning more money for us next year. Remember, that original money, or endowed balance, is like the tree trunk and branches. We always leave that alone, so it will keep making more apples for us year after year. What would happen if we spent the endowed balance? We'd have money to spend this year, but next year and the year after, we wouldn't have anything left. Just like if we cut down the apple tree, we might have apples this year, but next year there wouldn't be any apples at all. This is why we put our money into endowment funds rather than regular checking accounts. It ensures there will be money to spend on worthy causes year after year after year.
So I just thought that was a really good video to kind of explain why and how an endowment works. It's a little bit of a different way of thinking about raising funds and using funds to do good in the community. And so hopefully that helped clear things up for a few people too. So not to get too mathematical, but I always feel like looking at the numbers is helpful too. But each year we look at the balance of each fund and use a board-directed spending policy, which is currently set at 4.4%, to calculate what will be available to spend out of each fund. Administrative fees, which are 1% of the fund balance in most cases, support our operations, and anything earned over the spending policy and administrative fees combined are reinvested into the fund to increase growth and provide protection from times of economic downturn. Endowed funds generally provide stability and protection from market volatility because of their long-term nature. And so when we calculate our spending policy, we look at a 12-quarter rolling basis, which is a 3-year look back, which helps protect that. And then again, just over time, as they grow, they're a little more protected than day-to-day investments might be. You can see how the funds or the assets of the foundation grow through gifts and earnings and grant making. And as that happens, grant making in the community also grows. The history shows that it took the foundation 7 years to grant its first million, but in 1998, the foundation began granting 1 million a year, and last year we granted 3.8 million. So where does that money go? The foundation manages a variety of fund types, each with a unique purpose, but all providing benefits locally in our community. The rise and fall of grant making in the middle of the grant making graph on this page is due to some grant making that was done through pass-through funds at the Community Foundation. So in addition to fund management, that's a unique leadership role that the Community Foundation can play. Through COVID response, for example, the Community Foundation was able to apply for specialized COVID grant funding from a variety of organizations to immediately re-grant back into the community. Because we have a knowledge of and relationship with organizations serving the community in a way that a larger foundation might not. So we can work with other funders outside of our community that are trying to spread money across the state, for example, and they'll send money to our foundation to distribute locally and be that expert in our area in a way that they can't be. So sometimes there's some peaks and valleys that look a little unique because of that pass-through nature. So in the beginning of the Community Foundation, there was only one fund, and that was the unrestricted fund. Each year, a portion of those funds were used to make grants to nonprofits working to meet community needs. That fund is still used for community grant making, and it's where we put all donations directed to the greatest need or the general fund at the Community Foundation. So it's our largest fund and the fund that's going to give the Community Foundation the most flexibility into the future. But as time went on, we expanded to offer a variety of other fund types to serve donors in the community. In addition to the unrestricted fund, donors can choose to establish what we call a named unrestricted fund. Those funds are available to respond to changing community needs, but donors who establish these funds are recognized through the grant making done through their funds. Sometimes named unrestricted funds are established in honor or memory of a loved one or to establish a family legacy. So following or the next type of fund on the list is a field of interest fund. These are similar to unrestricted funds, but will have some parameters on the types of programs or project funds that can be funded through them. So we have field of interest funds that are limited to a certain geographic area within the community. Our town endowment grants programs, which benefit Gaston, Selma, and Yorktown, each have a specific fund that provides grants specifically to organizations serving those smaller communities within Muncie and Delaware County. Field of interest funds may also support a specific cause, such as animals or wellness, or a specific population, such as the elderly or youth. So they are they're more narrow than the unrestricted fund. They do have some flexibility in the types of organizations they can support. The foundation manages more than 50 scholarship funds to benefit students in post-secondary education. We're wrapping up scholarship season right now. So anyone who is graduating this year has already been announced and awarded their scholarships. If you follow us on social media, you've probably seen those posts about every day that we're trying to highlight those students. But if you have graduating seniors or college students in your life next year, I would encourage them to follow back up with us in early spring to apply for scholarships again. The foundation also offers donor advised funds. These are similar to what's offered through some of your like financial institutions like Fidelity or Charles Schwab. Donors can make one large charitable gift or multiple charitable gifts to the foundation and then recommend grants from their fund over time. For community-minded donors, there are really two key benefits to establishing a donor advised fund at the Community Foundation over establishing at one of the investment companies. And one is that Community Foundation staff will act as a partner as you look into making your grants. So we can provide those donors with information on organizations and details on specific needs that we see in the community. And we can talk through a donor's goals and help them make informed decisions about their grant making. And the other thing that's really good about donor advisements at the community foundations is that it keeps money local. So fees on the fund support local staff and operating costs so that we continue to understand the community's changing needs and manage the due diligence that's needed to ensure that the good grant making is happening. And then finally, the type of fund that many of you are probably interested in as you're here representing nonprofit organizations is we manage designated funds to directly support nonprofits in the community. These endowed funds are typically started by an organization or by a donor to provide sustainable support to an organization. So as you've seen, much of our annual grant making goes to beneficiaries of designated funds. Designated funds are funds established by an organization or a donor to benefit one or more designated organizations. In some cases, these are pass-through or temporary funds. Typically, these are project funds where an organization is working toward a specific project and needs a special place to collect donations from various sources or needs to keep funding separated. Donors have also created pass-through designated funds to give a lifetime or a timeline to their annual gift after they're no longer able to make those gifts themselves. But we're really here to talk about endowments. And so a designated fund with one beneficiary, a designated fund with one beneficiary organization, the endowment is a permanent pool of assets within the foundation to be used by and for that agency only. To understand how to best use your endowment, it's important to understand why they were created. Designated endowment funds have benefits to you if you are the beneficiary or recipient organization. And I have another quick video. This video was developed in 2015, but the message is still really good. You can see it here is Mary Dollison, and she's really well known across our community and was a big supporter, or is a big supporter of the Community Foundation and the Power of Endowment to benefit and protect vital services in our community. So this video is about the Bewley Center. And today, while the Bewley Center operates as a unit of the Boys and Girls Club, the fund established by the Dollisons continues to support activities and maintenance of that center. So it's a really unique situation. She's talking about the Bewley Center Fund in this video, and that organization is now part of Boys and Girls Club, but the funds still benefit the organization, even though it's changed who is managing it since the fund was created. So I'll let you watch the video.
In the Whiteley neighborhood of Muncie, there's a special place. Kids can go there for learning and recreation. They can get after-school tutoring. They can play sports and learn karate. The programming is for everybody. It doesn't matter what your ethnic group is, or how old you are, or what neighborhood you live in. The place is called the Bewley Center. My name is Mary Dollison, and I'm a big believer in the Bewley Center. I'm no longer on staff, but for a few years, my husband Cornelius and I stepped in to help reestablish the center after it had closed. This time, we want to keep the doors open for good. So we contributed some startup money for an endowment fund through the Community Foundation of Muncie and Delaware County. Now, we weren't the only people who have contributed to the fund. Lots of people have. But the great thing about an endowment fund is that the contributions are invested. Nobody spends the principal. It's only the return on the investment that's spent to support the operating budget. So a gift given through an endowment isn't just there and gone. It provides ongoing support for an organization. Cornelius and I appreciated the way the Community Foundation helped us set up the endowment. They helped us leave a legacy.
I just love the way she sums up how that money is invested and spent, and it benefits the organization for a long time. And I think it's an extra great example because of the change in the way that organization has been on the back end operating, but it's still benefiting that organization and its mission and why it was here in the community and what it's supposed to do. So what are some of those benefits of a designated fund? I know we've talked about a few of them, but just to sum it up a little bit, they generate income to help an organization carry out its mission. The income it's income that you can count on, as donations to your endowment are earmarked solely for an agency's use, and they can decide when to request those and what use best suits the organization. The director and the board of directors set the goals and ultimately the uses for the fund. So while funds are restricted, well, designated funds are restricted to us as the Community Foundation, they're typically unrestricted to an agency once they're received. They don't require any kind of post-grant report or reporting back to the Community Foundation for their use. The income potential is unlimited considering the endowment is permanent. Because designated funds are part of a larger pool of assets the foundation manages, an agency can expect favorable return on investment and growth of the fund over time. The foundation portfolio is diverse, and while we can't predict the market, we can say that we have professional and detail-oriented investment managers seeking to maximize returns on all of our endowment funds. We currently have more than $75 million in assets total. So because a permanent endowment fund will generate income in perpetuity, it establishes longevity and legitimacy for the organization. The fund will outlive all of the executive directors, board members, and all of the residents the organization serves. So it assures that funds are here today, here tomorrow, and here for always for the organization. This continuity can help the organization address needs as they change over time and help strengthen the long-term security of the organization. It may also create less reliance on annual fundraising and diversifies the way the organization derives operating income. Overall, donors want to be confident that the organization will put their dollars to good use. An endowment builds donor confidence by showing your donors or prospective donors evidence of good management and solid planning on the part of the organization. Donors also want to know that they can give in ways that they feel comfortable. Gifts to agency endowments from donors are tax deductible at the highest level of the law and received by the Community Foundation. We conduct the administration, saving your organization from the paperwork. We can provide unique gifting opportunities, as gifts can take many forms, including stock, life insurance, or through a will or other estate planning. Gifts may be in honor, memory of someone, even pets, and those gifts are acknowledged, and honorees and their families are notified of the gift. We also notify you when a donor contributes to your fund so that you can properly thank and steward that donor. And lastly, an agency or a designated agency endowment at the Community Foundation creates increased visibility for your organization in the community. You'll receive exposure in our website, our annual report, newsletter, and other publications that are distributed in the community. We promote the funds to our constituents, including financial planners, attorneys, estate planners, and they can pass that information on to their clients. You become part of the Community Foundation family and will be able to participate in special meetings, trainings, and opportunities designed for nonprofit organizations with endowments at the Community Foundation. So there are lots of benefits to a designated fund, some that would impact right away, some that would impact the organization over the long haul. So how does income from a designated fund work? As we've talked, you now know that there are many reasons why you may have or want to have an endowment. And so let's look at how it can grow and provide income. At the Community Foundation, to set up a designated endowment fund, a minimum of $10,000 is required. Those contributions are then invested as principal into our investment pool and cannot be spent for nothing can be spent for at least 2 full quarters. So once applicable, we only spend a portion of the investment, a portion of the interest based on a set spending policy by the board, and that currently is set at 4.4%. An organization can request income based on the spending policy allocation. Some choose to let the fund continue to grow until they are ready to request income, while others opt to have the income distributed at certain intervals. The Community Foundation can provide your income in regular intervals, such as quarterly or annually, or you can have it sit in the spendable for a while until you are ready to use it. Looking at a really simplistic example of how a typical fund grows, this diagram here assumes, again, going back to the math and the numbers, it assumes that our 4.4% spending policy and 1% administration fees structured in a very conservative return of 7.5%. So that would be the total investment return. This chart shows that that $10,000 fund would grow over time based on that 7.5%, taking money out each year from the spending policy and with $500 in gifts added to the fund each year. So in year 1, the agency establishes the fund and that $10,000 is earmarked for that agency's use. This fund is invested a full year, and in the first year, there'd be a $440 from the fund distributed to the organization. But looking at year 25, the fund would have grown to $25,000, so 2.5 times what's invested, and $15,000 would have been granted back to the organization. Looking forward to 50 years on the chart, the organization may have seen multiple directors over that time, but the fund is still providing permanency. The fund would now have $60,000 in their balance and provided $35,000 in income to the organization, and it's still growing. And then looking all the way to 100 years, the fund would be at $200,000, 20 times the initial contribution, and the organization would have received $120,000 in income, which is 12 times the initial investment. And the great thing is that the funds will continue to grow and provide income for an unlimited amount of additional centuries into the future of the organization. It's truly income you can count on. And this is at a simple $10,000 level, but thinking about what would happen if that fund was started or had grown to $100,000 or $1 million, the income generated could support salaries, a new facility, or any other goal that the organization would like to meet. And so it's really up to the organization and the goal set and generous donors that would help support the efforts that are desired, whatever your organization wants to do. So now that you better understand your endowment, what's the best use for it? An endowment is personalized to your agency's needs, and it's designed to meet the goals on your schedule. Now that you know the tremendous impact of a designated fund at the Community Foundation and know where you might use them, it's important to figure out how to grow the fund and help your organization. It's really important to understand that a designated fund is the and of an organization's fundraising and not the or. Operating is so important to organizations, and nonprofits must fundraise for their operating always. But when an organization is in good shape, and the possibility lies that the funds can be raised for operating and endowment, then it's time to consider solidifying the future for an organization by growing its endowment. So is your organization ready to start or grow their endowment? It's beneficial to take an audit of where you are and what your organization needs. As I mentioned, an endowment is personalized to your organization's needs, and it's aligned to meet the goals on your schedule. Your goals can be realigned by your organization at any time, and the endowment can be used as you see fit for any purpose, and the schedule for income distributions can be adjusted at any time. Remember, the more you put in, the more you get out of the endowment. Additionally, the endowment is truly an opportunity for organizational growth. As the endowment builds, the goals can be bigger and more robust. In some cases, it may be beneficial to create an endowment blueprint with your goals and even create an endowment task force made up of staff, board members, and volunteers to focus on your effort. Designated funds can either be started by an organization itself or by a caring donor with a passion for the organization. Presenting the idea of an endowment fund to an annual donor with the capacity for a major gift might be an opportunity to consider. We also aim to be your partner in this process and understand that for many organizations, finding an extra $10,000 to establish a fund isn't a possibility. So we are able to offer an ACORN program to help you build your fund over time. To use the ACORN program, an organization or individual makes a 10% deposit and is able to grow the fund over the course of 5 years. An organization will provide a $1,000 initial contribution to establish a designated fund and would have up to 5 years to contribute or work with additional donors to obtain contributions to reach the $10,000 fund minimum. While the fund is in the ACORN program, the balance of the fund will earn interest, but no fees will be assessed and no distributions will be made. Gifts directly from the organization, as well as gifts from outside donors, will count toward reaching the minimum. Community Foundation staff will regularly check in on the process and plans on the progress and your plans and provide updates on any new gifts to the fund, again, so you can work with the donors that are already supporting the work that you're trying to accomplish. Today, we're really pleased to be able to offer a special matching grant opportunity for organizations who do not yet have a designated fund at the foundation. So I know only one person on the survey checked that they could benefit from one. So that person really needs to open their ears. But if you know someone else who would like to share this information, we'd love to have that shared around. So if through the discussion today, you've gained interest in establishing an endowment fund, we're able to offer competitive matching funds up to $2,500 per new fund. To establish your fund and be eligible for these matching funds, you'll need to be prepared to establish a fund outright or use the ACORN fund to start your fund with a deposit and then grow over the next 5 years. We'll have a short application form that's available on our website, and the deadline to apply to participate in this matching opportunity is the end of this month on June 30th. And then we'll work with notifying and working with organizations who are interested later this summer. So we will definitely be sharing out that information in a little more detail, but we did want to let everyone know that that was happening. We're really excited to hopefully be able to offer some new funds to folks and let them benefit from an endowment. I think I'm getting close to the end of my slides today, which is good. This last slide is some detail about growing your fund, and we have some suggestions on how to do that. And I'm just going to run through these really quick since there's not a ton of people who on here. So it's a good mix of people who already have funds and people who don't. But we really encourage organizations who have a fund or are working towards building a fund to set a goal for what they want to use their fund for. That helps set an idea of how much balance their fund needs to really be able to accomplish what their goal is. And then work with their board to create policy that helps direct money into their endowment, and then really dedicate some time working towards a bigger endowment and growing that. And so a few ideas that I used some illustrations to highlight what those are. Here is a specialized campaign, to create a specialized campaign on a timeline with a specific purpose in mind, to engage your board and your current donors to work towards your campaign. If you're already working on a capital campaign, endowment might be a piece of that, but there may be a smaller campaign that's just specifically for your endowment as well. You can always host events. While events are labor intensive, many organizations have signature events that they're already doing. So you could choose to designate a portion of receipts that go towards the endowment. And you can set a goal and have a board set a policy that says a percentage of your earnings would go towards your endowment, or that kind of thing. Part of your annual campaign could go towards your endowment. I know we had one organization a couple years ago who felt pretty stable in their annual fundraising and that kind of thing. And so they sent out a special appeal at year end asking for people to contribute to their endowment, and it really helped them grow their endowment in that year. Working with donors on their planned giving or through their estate plans to leave a bequest to the community foundation to a designated fund is a really great way. We are more than happy to work with professional advisors and donors to help establish the right language to make sure that any estate gifts get into the correct fund of the community foundation. I already mentioned working with your major donors is really important. So people who already have strong relationships with your organizations may be interested in supporting an endowment, to know that their annual gift is going to continue on and that the work that you're doing will continue forever. And finally, that's not finally. Also, we encourage you to work with your board to set policies that work for your organizations. And one of those may be a percentage of funds from gifts over a certain amount go to your endowment. So if your board decides that all unrestricted gifts, $500 or greater, that 90% will be designated to operating and 10% would be designated to endowment. So the agency receives the full gift and then contributes $50 to the endowment. That's a great way to just add little bits to your fund. Some organizations do a similar thing with any bequests that they receive, where a percentage of all unexpected estate gifts would go in, a percentage of that would go into their endowment. We also offer options for online giving to your fund. So we just launched a new giving page before year end last year. And so every endowment at the community foundation has its own unique giving link. That makes it really easy to share that with your donors, maybe put it in an electronic newsletter, share it on social media. And now finally, the last idea on our list is a roundup campaign. We've all seen these at, Walgreens or wherever we go, where they say, would you like to round up, or would you like an add $1 to your thing to support this organization? You could definitely do that for your own fundraising as well. So, if you're, instead of giving $25 today, would you like to give 30, and 5 of that will support our endowment? And by putting all of these things together, you can build your endowment pretty quickly and help it to grow. And so we hope that you'll consider some of these things. I want to take a few